This episode is brought to you by United Airlines. When you want to make the most of your vacation, book with United. They're an airline that cares about your travels as much as you do. United is transforming the flying experience with Bluetooth connectivity, screens, power at every seat, and bigger overhead bins to help fit everyone's bag. And with their app, you can skip the bag check line, get live updates, and more. Change the way you fly. Book your next trip today at united.com.
You know when you reach that age where everyone and their mother won't shut up about their credit scores, yet it seems like no one really understands what's so special about those 3 random numbers? That's because credit scores are meaningless, unless you have Credit Karma to show you how to use them. We use those 3 random numbers, plus your financial profile, to help you find your next opportunity. Like a more rewarding credit card, a game plan that helps you pay down debt faster, or a personal loan to help you save more on interest payments each month. Cha-ching! Download Intuit Credit Karma today to get started.
This show is part of the HeadStuff podcast network.
Well, hello there. How are you getting on? And welcome to another cheeky episode of Listen, I'm Delicious, the lovely podcast created by me and several other people who helped me out and who made this lovely background we're in. So thanks to them, and thanks to you for coming back for another little listen. Hopefully you're finding these podcasts, I consider them more a webinar. I feel it's a very educational podcast, and hopefully you feel very cultured by it. And I hope to bring more culture to you as time goes on. We're on the 5th episode now, so we're getting into it. Today we have the lovely Jp McMahon. He's one of them top-class chefs. This is a real treat now for people who want to know about real intense proper food and proper cooking. He owns a fine dining restaurant by the name of Anir. I'm probably saying that wrong. It means from the West, and it's based in Galway. And it's a fairly cool thing he's doing with the restaurant. He's doing basically what they're trying to do is they're making dishes, and it's all stuff that they've sourced from Ireland. So a lot of seafood that's come from Ireland, and they're using a lot of seaweed, a lot of different types of seaweed to add flavour. And seaweed is something that I had as a child and absolutely hate it, but kind of grew a taste for. It's very salty. But I wasn't aware until we did this podcast how many types of seaweed there are. I thought really there was just one. But geez, he brought in about 40 boxes of seaweed, and they all tasted completely different. Some of them were spicy. I didn't know that seaweed could be spicy. So this man is an absolute mad scientist of Irish food. He's in there making spicy stuff with seaweed. Absolutely incredible. And what I found interesting is a lot of the stuff reminded me of Japanese food. Which is, a very exotic type of food. But it's amazing that we wouldn't think in Ireland that we have the stuff around us to make very exotic taste of. We're quite an exotic people. You think of Ireland, you think of simple potatoes, bit of butter, bit of meat. But actually, if you go around and pick a few things, if you go into the forest and you know what you're at, if you go around the sea and you know what to look for, you can actually find very exotic flavours out there. So I found that absolutely fascinating. In this podcast, I'm going to try my first oyster. Okay, that's a lie. I did try an oyster when I was about 10, but I spit it out because I was afraid of it. It went into my mouth and I was like, it tastes like the sea. It isn't the kind of feeling that I like in my mouth. So I'm actually going to refuse it entry further into my body. So I spit it out. And then I said today, he brought in a load of oysters. They're absolutely terrifying looking. They've got barnacles on them. Oysters they confuse me. I don't know if they're alive or dead. I don't like that. They're basically like a mussel. So it's like just an arm that lives in a shell. That's not something I'm completely for. But I just said, you know what? I'm going to be brave today. I'm going to have an oyster. And also eat them raw. Like that oyster is alive until you open it up and kind of pluck it out. So the oyster was barely deceased when I ate it. And if I'm eating something, I always kind of want it to have been deceased for a while. Like I don't want it still playing back its life while it's kind of going down the esophagus. But today I made an exception and I said, I'm going to have some oysters. It wasn't today. I'm shooting the intro on a different day. But for storytelling purposes today. So I said, I'm going to be brave today. So he opened up the oyster and I had a go of it. Now he told me something to do with the oyster that personally, I've always been told not to do. So I was told when you eat an oyster, you sort of just let it slide back your throat so that you can't really feel it in your mouth because it feels disgusting in your mouth. And also the taste is too strong. So you just let it slide back and then it's fine. And I always found it weird that people would eat a food that they're afraid to have in their mouth for longer than like half a second. I just thought that was a strange call by people. But he told me today that you are actually supposed to chew the oyster. So I went all in. I gave it a chew. You'll see it later on. And he's the expert. Listen, he's the fine dining chef. And I can barely cobble together an egg and beans. He's the fine dining chef, but I immediately regretted taking his advice. I'll be honest, if you're new to oysters, chewing it really just brought home exactly how it feels in my mouth. And I have to say, I found the oyster hard to swallow, and I don't think I'll be having one again anytime soon. Now, I know there's going to be a lot of people who are real cultured and understand oysters who are going to go, oh, Garron, you don't get it, whatever. I don't get it. I'm not classy enough to eat an oyster. And at 30 years of age, I'm just going to accept that. I'm never going to be an oyster person. I like bread. I like bread, and I like chicken, and I like chocolate bars. That's what I like. And I wish I liked broccoli more and stuff that was plain so that I'd lose weight. And I'm going to try and get to like it a bit more. But no, not for me. Anyway, despite all that, it was a great interview. He taught me lots about Irish food and what can be sourced locally. So I won't ramble on any further because we do plenty of rambling in the podcast. Lovely rambling that you'll enjoy. So here it is. Hello, how are you getting on? And welcome to episode, I don't remember, probably 8 of Listen, I'm Delicious. I'm here with Jp McMahon, chef, author, playwright. Am I missing anything?
Painter.
Bad
piano player.
Bad piano player. He does it all. And he's brought me absolutely everything the sea has to offer today. We've got pretty much everything that grows in the sea. We're going to eat it.
We're going to, yeah.
It smells very exotic in here at the moment. I feel like I'm at the seaside. So, first of all, I just wanted to... let's do it, because it's here in front of us. Let's get the lay of the land of what we've actually got here. Cool. Normally, I'd start by asking like what people's favourite snacks and stuff are. But we've got so much interesting stuff here. We'll get to that later, and we'll just go through what we actually have. Cool. So, let's go. What's this? So this is sea
purslane.
Purslane.
They're all prefixed with C. We're a bit boring. Like in, if you look at the Latin names, they're all these complicated Latin names. So we just have prefix, like, so this is sea spinach or sea beet. Yeah. And then this is sea radish. They're all sea. So little small herbs. They all grow by the sea. You can eat them. People have ate them for thousands of years. We don't eat them too much anymore.
What part do I eat? The leaf?
You can eat the whole lot, but the leaf is the
Let's taste some sea purslane.
Yeah.
Oh, it's very salty.
Oh, maybe I get used to it.
It is nice.
Yeah. I think
it's got a minor saltiness, nice. It's lovely. What would this be? So what would you use this in?
I would use this to garnish kind of fish and vegetable dishes.
Yeah.
Like as it'll kind of taste. They're all kind of used for seasoning.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because people think, you could just like eat a handful of it.
Yeah.
And that's not really the way we think about it. But this one is sea spinach. It kind of looks like a spinach leaf.
Sea spinach.
And this is the oldest form of sugar beet and spinach. And this grows on the beach. And it's the easiest one to identify.
It actually tastes good.
Kind of waxier because the salt water hits it a lot.
Yeah, it's like waxier than spinach. Less of that strong spinach flavour and a bit saltier. They're very nice. And what would you use that? So would you sort of cook that along?
You could toss that through mussels or clams. Or you could use it like spinach. You could literally cook it off in a bit of butter.
Okay. That's actually very nice.
That's probably the most palatable. Do you know what I mean? Some of them get a little bit less like this one. Like
okay.
It's not
we're about to get into stuff that just tastes like licking the ocean.
Yeah, no, like this is quite strong. Maybe eat half that.
What is this?
This is sea radish, and it's kind of somewhere between horseradish and wasabi.
I hate wasabi.
No, I normally cook it. So eating it raw is a bit.
What is wasabi?
Wasabi is a plant, and it's the root that you use, but the leaves.
Right, I thought wasabi was like guacamole with spices in it.
It's probably not, but anyway, maybe it is sometimes. Maybe it is because wasabi is really expensive. Like it could be $2,000 a kilo.
So this is going to be spicy.
It is a bit like it kind of catches you. Now I'm not really great on chilies. If you're a big chili person, you might, yeah.
Oh, at first I thought it wasn't too bad.
Yeah.
Oh, it is actually a lot like wasabi. What's that called?
A sea radish. It's in the radish family. And you kind of, like I would cook this. I would slice it up and it's not really one you'd be dogging into raw. Yeah.
I hate that.
So
what would you use that in?
We take this off as a leaf and then we chop it up and we might fold it through like a little broth or something.
Yeah.
So if the Japanese were using it, they'd have it in a little bowl of ramen with noodles and full of vitamins and minerals. And
I don't think I'll ever eat that again in my life.
and you know what? It grows in such abundance. And I'd say, wouldn't you love a pesto made of that now?
Yeah. No. No, I really wouldn't.
But there doesn't seem to have much culinary use because there's so much of it in Ireland and we don't pick it.
Yeah, maybe it's medicinal. It tastes bad enough to be medicinal.
Yeah. And then we're on to the seaweeds.
Yes.
So, sea lettuce is a very easy one to identify because it looks like lettuce and it comes from the sea. It's one most people feel comfortable with because it's just...
Here's some sea lettuce. Yeah, sea lettuce is like the mildest one.
Definitely. Oh, yeah, sure. You look, we were talking about this. You're convinced. You know seaweed.
I like seaweed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it a lot.
Seaweed is our main flavour in an ear. And we use it fresh and dried. And a lot of people think, if it's dried, it means it's not as good. But it kind of has a completely different flavour, dried, and different use and all that.
Absolutely, yeah. So sea lettuce, it doesn't really taste like it's not super salty. It basically tastes like wet lettuce. And there's like maybe a little bit more flavour than lettuce.
I have to get the sea radish taste out of my mouth.
Yeah. Or maybe you would like to have sea radish instead. I probably should have brought like 40 drinks. Feel like I'm after eating a curry. But.
Yeah. And then I have two pickles. So these two are pickled. Actually, we'll have this one fresh and then we'll have the pickled ones. So this one, I don't know if you heard this one before. This one I call sea truffle. Now it has a big Latin name.
Okay.
And it's the only seaweed that grows on other seaweed.
Okay.
So it's not like I wouldn't say it's a fungus or that, but. Have a taste of it there. We also dry it and powder it.
Okay.
And in Iceland, they mix it with salt. But it's really mushroomy.
Okay.
And
so it's sort of a hairy kind of look on seaweed. Very hairy. Feels very strange in the hand.
Yeah. And I'll tell you now, actually in the West, what they used to call it, the hairy bit gives it away.
Yeah, it tastes sort of... It's quite mild as well.
Yeah.
It does taste a bit mushroomy. Yeah.
When it's dried, it's much more intense, and we sprinkle it over. We sprinkle it over everything. It's really, it's an amazing flavor.
So it is a fungus, is that?
I don't know if it's a seaweed, but it grows on blatherwrack. It doesn't like most seaweed grows on the rocks.
Yeah.
Whereas this one always grows on other ones. But the funny thing is, when I was
sea truffle,
when I was researching for the cookbook, I was looking at different books and seaweeds and that. And so this used to be called mermaid's pubes in the west of Ireland.
I can see it.
But then I was told by this old guy, he said, it was sailor's eyebrows. It was never... So I was like, well, listen, I didn't make this up. I just read this.
Yeah.
And then when I was over in the States, and you forget they're a little bit more conservative than we are.
Yeah.
I thought, sure, I'll make a joke and say, sure, it's mermaid's pubes. No one laughed. It was just silence. And people were...
Yeah, the Americans, a lot of them would not appreciate that.
No, they didn't. And so I was told just to say eyelashes, sailor's eyelashes.
Sailor's eyelashes. Sailor's eyelashes are mermaid's pubes. It tastes like quite mushroomy. So sea truffles. Yeah. Very, very mushroomy.
And then I've got two pickles.
What would you use this in?
This one is the same. We use it a lot on.
You dry it out and use it as like a powder.
We use it fresh on oysters, and then as a powder, you can put it over butter, put it into bread. It's so nice.
Yeah,
like it gets a much more truffly taste.
Okay.
When it's dried. And it's actually one of the Icelandic chefs told it to me. But this one is channel rack. And this one grows on the rocks, and we pickle this one raw. It's a bit chewy raw, so we cook this one and then we pickle it. So it brings a bit of an acidic note.
Yeah, it tastes very Japanese.
Oh, there you go. Good. That's good. That's what we're going for.
Yeah, it has that same sort of flavour
even
profile.
Though I haven't been to Japan yet, but like people go, geez, you're very inspired by Japan. I was like, inspired from afar. Through the cookbooks.
Pickling and seafood, that's to me what Japan tastes like.
And the dillisk, this one's pickled as well. Now when dillisk is pickled, it kind of breaks down a bit. This one came down in the car, so it wouldn't be the best specimen ever. But a lot of people previous generations would have grown up buying bags of this dried and just chewing on it like it was tasty.
Yes. So when I was a kid, we used to, you would have like a big bag of of dried dill.
Yeah. It was really popular. And it's also, I mean,
they used to tell me it was good for you. I don't know if that's true or not. It may or may not be.
I don't think about it too much because we use it for taste, but it's so good.
That's lovely.
It's so good for you.
That's really nice.
It's so good for you. Like, it's crazy. And a lot of the seaweed that we eat now in Ireland is actually through supplements and health things. And it's protein balls with seaweed mixed through them. And because has all this, I was about to say all this shite, and it has all this magnesium and iron and protein. And you're going to give it to cows soon to stop them farting. Or belching.
What, you're going to feed it to cows to stop them from farting?
That's so another way it's the belching, all the cows belching, creating all the greenhouse gases. Well, a lot of them.
Yeah, methane. One of the biggest causes.
And so seemingly they're doing tests on feeding cows seaweed because up in Scotland, these cows have just been naturally eating it and they're producing less methane. So they're doing experiments at the moment. So we'll have all the cows.
That's mad.
Yeah.
So all right, okay. Well, that's absolutely crazy. And then I know some of it is being used for like biofuel and stuff as well. Do
you know what the unfortunate thing? And do you know what it kind of encapsulates a little bit of Ireland in a nutshell. Is that we have all this seaweed as food and we use it as everything else except as a food. Yeah. It's great as a fertilizer as well for growing spuds.
Yeah.
And when the spud came over, it kind of really killed a lot of the seaweed tradition, particularly in the West, because you would have had people, particularly in Clare, like this is going long back, would have farmed seaweed in the sense if you just put all the rocks together, and then you get your own little rock, like your own little kind of little straight line of seaweed, and then you go down and pick it. Whereas once the potato came in, it was just so nutritious that it could feed everyone just to start living on spuds. Now, there is dishes like potato and dillis with milk and those kind of things that would have been around. But the potato just kind of, and I wouldn't say it killed everything, but the people had no money and the spud was cheap and you could grow so many spuds.
Yes.
And people were eating, was it 7 kilos a day.
Yeah, I'd eat 7 kilos of spuds a day. I'd eat 7 kilos of spuds, no problem.
And then they would eat them also, they'd eat them partially cooked.
Yeah.
And the raw bit.
I wouldn't do that.
Yeah, but the raw bit would stay in their stomach and then about 11 or 12 o'clock, the raw bit would break down and then they get a little kind of...
a little release of energy
hit from it. Yeah.
Oh,
even though they're supposed to be poisonous raw, so I don't know now if that few people lost their lives in that one. But
that's mad.
Yeah, you get a seemingly if you're out in the bog and you'd have the I forget what you call it. It has an Irish name and it has the undercooked bit of the spud.
Yeah,
and you'd get you get the buzz off the undercooked.
And when you're out in the bog, it's like taking pre-workout before you go to the bar.
this is
little release energy,
a little bit of prebiotics. So, and we also have the oysters now. I don't know now.
Just before we move on to them, what got you interested in cooking with seaweed and using?
When we opened in here, we decided that we were going to focus on like wild food and Irish food, so stuff that grows in Ireland. We said, like, do you know what? Let's open a restaurant where we're not going to use anything that doesn't grow in Ireland.
Okay,
and I know that sounds like it mightn't sound radical. It's still quite like radical in the sense that there's two things. The sugar we don't produce in Ireland anymore, and we don't really have a great tradition of making white flour. We've loads and loads of brown flour. We don't have the climate to produce this soft wheat. So there are two things that we make an exception. Yeah. But everything else we use. So we don't use any black pepper, any lemons, any limes, any guacamole, any spices, anything like that. And I suppose the more we got into using native stuff, the more seaweed just kept coming up, and we'd use a small bit of it, and then someone might come in and give us a bit more, and you'd talk to some foragers, you'd talk to some seaweed people, and then I just got more and more into it, and then I saw what the Japanese were doing with it, and so why don't they kind of treat it like gold, and we just use it as fertilizer.
Because everything you eat from that's Japanese expired has seaweeds somewhere in there. Yeah.
And it's just a great flavor enhancer. Like it has so much flavor, and that kind of fifth taste, umami.
Yes.
Like that's principally from seaweed originally. The Japanese discovered it in 1906, and they got it from kelp, and they said, "Oh, this is this new taste sensation," and it kind of roughly translates as well into MSG. which gets a lot of bad rap because it's used a lot in the processing industry. But essentially, it's just a salt, and it makes things taste nice.
Yeah, it absolutely does. I can confirm that 100%.
And if you put it in stuff that's not very good, it tastes really, really nice.
Yeah,
and you go,
yeah.
Jeez,
Oh,
I
yeah.
love this.
Yeah.
I love it. Like my kids are like, "Jeez, I love this ice cream," and you go, "No, well, it's not really. There's no milk in it.
Yeah.
It just has monosodium glutamate powder." And you go, "Jesus, it's great though."
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So
yeah.
you can use it to make anything because it sends a message to your brain that just says yummy.
Okay. Right.
That's the chemical, like if it and it
That's
just
why
says,
Armat goes on everything.
that's one and my
My secret ingredient in my mashed potatoes is Armat.
My-
Nobody knows what special I'm doing with it.
my
but
daughter
Armat.
has a jar of aromat beside her.
So good.
But I know my her mum used to my ex-wife grew up in Offaly and they used to just have aromat sandwiches. So you used to just have bread, butter, aromat, cloves.
Yeah, I never had that. I had sugar sandwiches, but never Armat sandwiches.
And I put that in the new book when we did the new book is 100 Irish Foods and sugar sandwiches made the cut. We had to.
Yes.
We and talking to other people about them, and then this Polish couple said we used to have them as kids as well. So there's a European tradition of sugar sandwiches.
Yeah, it's a real struggle treat.
Yeah.
I feel like. So the proper way to make a sugar sandwich, because I have seen people do it wrong, where they just put sugar on it. You have to butter it. Quite heavily.
Butter.
Yeah,
I was criticised for the
goal
the
is
amount
to
of butter.
almost turn the butter into an icing.
Yeah. We had a cut. A cross section of it, and like you want to see a good bit of butter.
Yeah.
But we used to have them going to school, and if you had brown sugar, then it was kind of a bit of a treat.
Yeah, I
to
this day I feel
caramel.
sophisticated if I have brown sugar.
And then I was wondering why all our teeth were falling out. Depends how many sugar sandwiches you ate.
Yeah, it's something that it doesn't seem to have been it seems to be a European thing, but Americans definitely didn't do it. I think they have this thing called like fluff. That this is what they were telling me they used to have.
Yeah.
It's like a big carton of this white fluffy stuff.
Yeah.
And they put that on. That's what I've been told is the equivalent.
It's like meringue, but has a bit more like candy floss air in it. But because when my daughter, there was a shop selling American treats, and she bought a tub of fluff.
Yeah.
And it's like a synthetic meringue with a bit of air in it.
Yeah, a lot of people told me about that when I brought up sugar sandwiches before. And then I was also told by another group of Americans that that's only one place in America, that they don't eat that everywhere else.
Okay.
Well, so I don't know what the truth is.
Maybe it's the posh lads who are just like saying we don't eat that.
Yeah,
just when you say sugar sandwiches to people, they're like, "Are you sure now? Are you all right?"
Yeah.
And you go, that was white there. And even when we launched the book, because what we mentioned in the book as well as Findus crispy pancakes, and of course we mentioned seaweed and all that, but we put some numerous ones in.
Yeah.
One of my chefs made some little snacks, so he made a tiny little Findus crispy pancake, and then he made a little small sugar sandwich.
Yeah.
But it had gone way too chefy. It was like toasted bread and caramelized sugar and butter, and people were like, "Oh my god!" It was like crack. They were like, "What is that?"
Yeah.
And I was like, "It was just an elevated sugar sandwich."
Yeah. Okay. Right. Yeah. It sounds great to me.
Well, butter, bread, sugar, like it's kind of
you can't beat it.
You have all your elements, you know, and the bread, they've put vitamins in the bread for you, so
it's essentially a fully nutritious, complete sandwich.
100%. Yeah.
So, is there anything that you discovered from obviously? I love the idea of like creating the limitation that you're just going to use Irish stuff. I think stuff like that is great for anything, not just cooking, for any sort of creative thing. Is there anything that you discovered from putting that limitation on yourself? Any sort of dishes you discovered, or anything that have become your favorite, or that you're the most proud of, or anything like that?
Like, I'd say one of them is we make and it's always on the menu because we've a tasting menu. Is we make an ice cream from oysters.
Okay, that sounds horrific.
And we dust it with dried sea lettuce. But we've always served it in the shell. But just recently,
is that a savoury ice cream?
It's a savoury ice cream.
Okay.
Very inspired by the Japanese again. But so we always served it in the shell. So you make the ice cream, and the thing is that oysters have the same properties as egg yolks. So you can make the ice cream and use the oysters as eggs.
Okay.
And so it's just oysters, milk and cream, and little bit of sprinkles. And so only recently, because we got this new mold, and we made an edible oyster shell.
Yeah.
So now you can eat the whole thing. And actually, ironically, since we have the edible shell, more people like it. It's weird.
Okay.
You used to have to scoop it out with a spoon out of the actual shell. And at the very beginning, everyone was like, that's just too weird. And we kind of left it on the menu as kind of like, do you know what? It's a weird thing and it's a bit of fun. And it kind of makes your brain a bit crazy because you're used to vanilla ice cream and you're used to oysters on two separate sides of your brain. And then they kind of meet and you're like, what's going on here?
I actually can't imagine it.
But now I'd say 60% of the people enjoy it. Like some people. Okay. Now we did go one step more and we made a scallop roll. Do you know the orange bit on the scallop?
Yes.
We made an ice cream from that and that was 90% hated. And we put a bit of honey and things on it and bee pollen and people are like, that's awful.
It sounds horrendous.
But we were kind of trying to experiment with the sea and stuff.
I've had bacon ice cream.
Yeah.
And it is surprising. It works.
Yeah.
Like it feels like it wouldn't work until you have it and then it all makes sense. So I can imagine how it works, but it sounds awful.
Yeah, but the Japanese have like mussel ice cream, squid. They make ice cream out of anything. It doesn't like... The weirder the better. Yeah. And so we did we took a bit of some of the oysters out, so it's a little bit milder now because it was a bit too oystery.
Yeah.
And but yeah, look, I mean, I think it's one of the ones we would never really thought about that. And also I think it sounds common, but we use a lot of shellfish in the restaurant. And I still to this day, I wouldn't eat a massive amount of shellfish at home. I didn't grow up eating any shellfish.
Yeah.
I grew up in Maynooth outside Dublin and like we had really bony whiting that was floured and I thought it was going to kill you.
Yeah.
Because on every Friday and I was so afraid and as
boiled to death.
As you were eating it, my dad would say, don't choke on the bones. And then you were like, I'm going to choke on the bones. There's bones in here. Like I never thought, like the chicken is never going to kill you. The chicken breast. So I just, for a while I said, I'm only eating chicken breasts.
Did you eat much mackerel?
No, growing up, not at all.
Yeah, mackerel was the big one for us. And I used to love pulling the bone out of the mackerel, his like backbone, and then eating the bit of fish off between the ribs or whatever they are on a fish. I used to love that.
It's a big West of Ireland thing, mackerel. I don't think I had mackerel until I lived in Galway, and then every you have 2 seasons. You have before the summer and then after the summer, and then you have all the young lads fishing, and they come into the restaurant and go and have a bag of mackerel. And
mackerel is so good. It's a lot of people don't seem to eat it here, but it's such a
meaty fish.
It's such a meaty fish. Yeah, like it's a man fish.
And I think as well, one of the reasons why people don't eat it as well is that when you buy them whole, they have the guts in because oily fish are better. They preserve better with the guts in. Yeah. Whereas non-oily fish like whitefish are better with the guts out.
Yes.
And so even when I'm doing cooking classes in here and you give people the mackerel and you say you have to gut it, and they're like, well, you just say you just put a knife into its little bum and you kind of gut it. Yeah. And they're like, no, I'm not doing that. And then when they put their hand in, they take it out. It's like almost like this crazy evisceration. People are like traumatized by the mackerel. But mackerel is a great fish because it's inexpensive and it's a great fish. If you like fish and you want to practice on filleting it or whatever else, it's not going to break the bank. Whereas you're not going to go and get really expensive fish and then go, I'm going to practice filleting. Yeah. Whereas mackerel, you can get 10 of them and just go, it doesn't really matter, you know. And they're really nice smoked as well. They're really nice
so good smoked, yeah.
This show is part of HeadStuff Podcasts. Here's another show you might like.
Hello, everybody. She's Emma Dorn. She's Deirdre. Okay, now sorry to disturb you. We know you're listening to something else, but we wanted to tell you very quickly about
Stop listening to that and listen to us.
After the fact.
Sorry,
keep it
when
tight.
you're finished listening to that, listen to us.
Yes. We'd love for you to come join us. Our podcast is called Keep It Tight.
Keep it tight.
Keep it tight. Have a look at headstuffpodcast.com or wherever you get your podcasts. We nearly have how many downloads, Deirdre?
Nearly 1 million.
So people are enjoying it. Get on board.
Be one of the millions.
Blinds.com is kicking off the savings early with Black Friday mega deals all month long. A Blinds.com design expert can help you make the perfect selection on your schedule. We can even handle everything from measure to your whole home install for just one low cost. With over 25 million windows covered, Blinds.com is the #1 online retailer of custom window coverings. Save up to 45% on select styles, plus a free professional measure right now at Blinds.com. Rules and restrictions may apply.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon. The holidays are here, and you know what that means. It's time to get your friends and family the gifts they deserve. Take the stress out of shopping with Amazon's great deals and low prices on a huge range of items from toys to tech and much more. Whoever you're gifting for, Amazon has great prices on everything you need this holiday season. Shop early holiday deals now.
So we have some oysters here.
We do, and I'd normally dress these with a bit of sea lettuce and some rapeseed oil, and we're just going to eat them au natural.
I find oysters to be the most terrifying looking thing on the planet. They've all the. So you were saying about the barnacles that how's a barnacle formed? You're saying worms live in them or something?
Or I don't know if it's a little insect or something. When you get them all fresh, you can kind of poke them and they kind of go back in.
Yeah.
But they grow on they just grow on the shell, because the shell, these take about 3 to 5 years to grow, and they're like almost like, I think it's calcium carbonate or something like that. That's what it's the same stuff that makes pearls.
Oh, okay.
We don't have the pearl producing oysters. Occasionally, I found a tiny pearl, like a little thing. But even it was Jonathan Swift said it was a brave man that first ate an oyster. But I don't know why he was brave. Was it because I
kind of get it. I'm still sort of terrified. Like, I've had oyster and I know it's not as bad as I think it's going to be, but every time I look one in the eyes, I'm like, oh, I don't.
But you know the mistake people make is you have to chew it. And because people try and swallow it, and then they say, oh, I hate that. And I say, if I gave you a lump of chicken and said, swallow it, and you go, that's awful, I don't like that sensation. You're going, well, why are you doing it with oysters? But we got into this habit from the 50s onward, particularly when they were almost like paired with Guinness. And then it was like, have 12 oysters with your pint of Guinness. And then people are going, I got sick. And you're like going, of course you got sick.
Jesus, I can't imagine that now. 12 oysters and a Guinness. If you threw that up.
One of my chef friends, Robin Gill, he's a Irish chef in London. He ate 90 one day.
90?
90. And now I think I could do 12 or 15. And our actually French sommelier was in the 50, like he could go into 50 something. It was just...
How many calories is in an oyster? He's probably...
Not that much. Like.
He was probably built like a brick shithouse after all that protein.
Well, I don't know if he built like that, but I'd say it had to come out some way, you know? But no, that's his head off there. And they're alive, so... Technically speaking, I've just decapitated them.
Sorry, lad.
Yeah,
sorry about that live execution there on the podcast.
But people never get upset when you kill an oyster. Whereas
it doesn't look like it's doing much, does it?
Exactly.
He's not up to a lot, is he?
And you know, some vegans eat oysters and mussels.
Hypocrites.
If you Google, do vegans eat mussels? There's a complex debate. Because it's only a mussel and it doesn't have a nervous system and it's not sentient. So is it like a leek?
I sort of see the argument.
And then my dad's a scientist and he was telling me, well, you know, leeks scream as well. And I was like, leeks do not scream. He says, oh, you can pick it up now on a very low frequency. And I was like, listen.
And so, but can they move and stuff?
No, they kind of open and close their mouth. It's kind of like in relation to... or their shell in relation to... it's kind of like a sense thing.
Yeah, okay,
but
right.
It's they don't have a nervous system. Whereas if I killed a lobster now here,
he wouldn't be happy about that at all.
Very upset.
Yeah,
and I was saying to you when I did the.
I feel like lobster is like the least vegan thing to eat.
Yeah, no,
because you have to actually cook them alive, which is
and you have to if you want to do it the humane way, you have to stab them in the head. Now, how that's more humane than boiling them alive? It's much of a muchness because people say, I put them in the freezer, and I was like, well, they're still going to die, and I wouldn't like to be frozen to death or boiled alive. Or
it's all bad options for the lobster.
I was like, there's no.
That's even a bit carnivorous for me now.
Yeah.
It's a bit too close to the bone. And like I could have one served to me, but I don't want to be in there.
And you know what? That's exactly when I did the play I wrote, Irish Food, a play, we put it on the Dublin Fringe Festival. No one had any problem eating a lobster.
Yeah.
But they were like, that's not dying on stage.
Yeah.
And they're like, I'm not looking at that die. And everyone was like, could I get a bit of that now? At the break, we served up the lobster. And everyone loved it.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, no, just don't be letting them die. But also people, I think it's because my daughter years ago used to say, well, it has eyes.
Yes.
It's looking at you. Whereas the mussels, she's like, I don't care. I said, we just killed a family of mussels there. And she was like, well, they're not looking at me.
Yeah.
And then they used to actually, because he used to bring them home every Christmas and they used to like name them and then say, well, you know, Barry might be going to school with his wife and then I'd kill him and then Heather would be like, he could have had a career. And I'd be like, anyway, are you going to try this or will I try the first one?
I'll have a go, yeah. I'll have a go. I haven't eaten an oyster in 10 years.
Well, hopefully We'd smell it as well, just in case, you know.
Yeah,
it's good.
I'd rather not die of whatever they give you.
I wouldn't. I don't think it'd die. Like, it might
you're
give
telling me I need to give this a couple of chews? Because I think I just swallowed it last time I had it.
I put it in and chew it, because if you swallow it, you don't get the taste of the oyster. You get the taste of the briny liquid.
Yeah.
And I was always given out to, because I grew up...
I feel like they'd be easier to eat if you were looking at the other side. Like, the bottom of them just looks so complex.
Yeah. they do have a certain...
so you can really see the mechanisms of its existence.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to go for it. I'm absolutely fucking terrified of this. Okay. And will he just slide into my mouth?
He should. I took him off.
Or
is he? No. Ooh. Fresh.
It's so strong.
It is. It's like a chicken that drowned at sea.
No. Why don't I have a beverage?
I have some wine.
Oh, I'll take it. Yeah. I'll take it. Let's go.
Open that.
Okay, so this is your favourite drink?
Well, you know, look, I had two, because I'm a very complex man, and I grew up. I didn't grow up in a foodie family, and I came into food, and I love food, and we have a Michelin star restaurant, and I've travelled the world and blah blah, representing Ireland. But I was torn between a Diet Coke or a Pinot Noir.
Okay.
And because Pinot Noir is my favourite wine. But I said, you know, I was thinking last night, I said, if I only brought up the Pinot Noir, people were like, that lad is such a ponce now. He never drank wine when I knew him. And
I'm sniffing it here
as
if I know what I'm trying to smell.
Now, I didn't bring that from the restaurant now, so I had to get that on the way up.
Oh.
But it's from New Zealand Pinot Noir.
That's really nice.
It's really light.
It is.
And I love that lightness.
I'm a fan of that. That's taking the oyster out of me as well, thank God.
But wine is always better with food. But we didn't grow up with wine. My mother, was there West Coast Cool or something? She wasn't. Like, she'd have a glass of white wine now, but there was never anything about wine in our house. And then when you became 15, it was always like, you have to drink cider and you have to drink Guinness. And you have to become a man. And you'd go out and I remember the day we went out and said, today we're going to drink Guinness. We have to get into Guinness, because we were still drinking cider and we were falling behind. And so we went out and we had...
It's like a rite of passage if you're a man.
And we had 4 pints. And I was thinking, okay, we've made it. And then my friend said, I'm going to have a 5th. And then, of course, he got sick over the wall on the way home. And I made it. But it wasn't, until I started working in the restaurants. But I had a friend I went to school with, and he was up, and I don't know what age he was. He was in his 30s. This is like well before COVID. Now I'm 46 now. But he had never had a glass of wine.
I don't think I had a glass of wine until I was 25-ish. Just had never drank it. I'd probably had like a sip or two of like really cheap white wine while I was bush lushing a few times.
Yeah.
If you're not familiar with the term bush lushing, because we do have an international audience, bush lushing is where you go into a bush and you get pissed, usually when you're 14. So there you go. Yeah. That's probably the only context I had white wine in, and it was awful. But I never had proper wine until I was like 25, and I do like red wine, but as you say, I only like it when I'm eating. I couldn't sit there and just drink it.
It's a much more kind of eaten beverage. It's like the pint is more. A pint's almost like a meal in itself.
Yeah,
particularly like a pint of stout. It's very kind of rich, whereas the wine.
Yeah, a lot of people will have like their dinner and they'll get a pint of stout with it, and I do not get that.
It's that's hard.
Yeah,
but also like people who have a pint of milk with their dinner.
Oh, I do that.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. If I'm having a roast, I'm not even stopping at the pint. That milk is coming out of the fridge. I need free refills.
I just get full of milk then.
Oh yeah, no, that's absolutely the purpose of it.
we had Bernard, our lamb farmer, used to come in when we had our tartare, our cafe, and we served tartare like raw beef, and we also, so he used to have a pint of milk, a bowl of soup, and then the tartare. And I don't know how it all worked together, but for him, every Friday he used to go, I just love it.
Yeah, I can't eat and drink a pint of Guinness. It just feels wrong. Okay, we have some other food options. So we've had the sea.
We've had the sea, and then I've always said, like, when people ask me what's my favourite dish and like what's the first dish that like I remember cooking at home, and bolognese, which is like, and then it's usually spaghetti, but I didn't have spaghetti last night when I was making this. But like I had the first time I ever had spaghetti bolognese, I was sometime in the 1980s, so I must have been under 10, and we were in Tipperary at this restaurant. There was 6 of us, 6 kids and my 2 parents, and they were all getting burgers and chips. Yeah. And for some reason I said, I'm going to have the spaghetti bolognese. And my mother was like, you won't like that. And she said, that's foreign. Yeah. And
it was still, even when I was a kid, it was still a bit exotic.
1990 was like literally it was like, we just made it to Europe then. That was the real entry of Ireland into Europe. And all of a sudden, my dad was making lasagna. And it was just like, where is this coming from? I mean, and it's hard to explain this to kids now because they're like, you must have had a very boring childhood. And I was like, no. I was like, but my grandparents never ate pasta. Yeah. Like it was just not, they would not sit down and have lasagna. It was always meat and 2 veg. Even the burgers had no bun.
That's 100%.
It was like a patty. I don't know what it was. I can't remember what they called it, like a meat patty or something. But it was a burger. It was essentially a burger.
Yeah, it was still sort of the same. Even when I was a very young kid, I remember that like pasta would be considered very we'd feel fancy eating that still.
Yeah.
Now it's like probably like if I'm eating pasta, generally speaking, now. Not because I love pasta, but if I'm eating it now, it's usually because I've run out of money. I'm having a tin of tuna. In on top of the pasta, some mayonnaise.
Tuna, sweet corn pasta.
Yeah, it's good. It's good.
It is something I love. One of my daughters likes it. My other daughter does not like bolognese, even though she's kind of coming back now. She for a while I used to have to keep out some pasta and then mix pesto in it. One of them have pesto and one of them have bolognese. But I love making it, and it'll be like it's my go-to comfort dish.
So we've got it here.
I heat it up now, and hopefully now it's a good representation. I think it should have more meat to pass the ratio, but whenever I was dividing it last night,
it's with a fusilli pasta.
Yes.
Fusilli?
So hopefully now.
So this is homemade. This is not Dolmio.
This is and we grew up the Dolmio. Sure, I mean, if you could afford to buy Dolmio, you were posh.
Yeah, you know, it was usually the little version, whatever that was called, Romania or something.
This is tins of tomatoes and tomato puree, bit of red wine, bit of beef stock.
Oh man, that's good.
That's
good.
Yeah. I'd love to just open a shop selling that.
You can taste that that's not just Dolmio.
No,
that's incredible.
I'd love to just, we just don't have the market for single item shops in Ireland, like the way in New York where they just sell one thing and they have like 5 million people. Like, I mean,
I don't know. I mean, I think if you got the right TikTok page going, there's a fellow who just sells potatoes in the UK. Do you know about that?
No.
The spud fella, and he just sells spuds. Like raw
spuds.
No, raw. No, not raw. Nobody's buying raw. So I'll chew on that. Like an apple. No, it's like he just does baked potatoes, and then he's got like, beans and tuna and like chili beef stuff. He's got millions of followers, and all of his videos are just him going, all right, what you on that, mate? And it's like, oh, I love tuna. And just go, and people love it. I watch them. I don't know why I watch them. Okay. I have watched that man make thousands of potatoes. I don't know what I'm getting out of it, but I do it.
So maybe I just need 5 pastas and some toppings.
Yeah, I think you do. Or like even just the shapes. You could be like, okay, you want bolognese? What? Do you want tagliatelle?
Yeah, there you go. And you could have little funky ones, different shapes for...
Or the pastas that are different colours.
Yes.
I don't know. I think if you find a way to make it fun and you make a TikTok page... You could have your dream.
And just bolognese. And then I might make some money. Because that's the problem with restaurants and food. The more elaborate it gets, the more expensive it gets. And that's why we're seeing loads and loads more restaurants or food trucks or that have a really, it's not limited is the wrong word, like a really focused concept.
Yeah.
And it's like 3 things, 2 things. And because labour's getting so expensive. And rates and rent and all the insurance and all that. And so you just have to narrow things down and go, what are we going to do? Let's do these 5 things. And it's...
I quite enjoy it though. I like going to a place where I'm kind of forced. My hand is kind of forced. Because first of all, I don't get FOMO. Because whenever I order something and then somebody else orders something else off the menu, I'm like, oh, that's bigger than what I got and that's nicer looking. And
that usually happens
then I'm pissed off.
When Irish people order the fish and the people say, I never order the fish in the restaurant, it's always too small.
Yeah.
And I was like, but it might be big. And they go, but I see it coming out and then it's big and I've ordered the steak and I go, I should have ordered the fish. And you're like, but I never ordered the fish because we're afraid of fish still a little bit.
Absolutely, yeah. No, I'm honestly, my menu decision, I'm a complete fat cunt when it comes to menus. I'll look at the menu and then I'll scan the restaurant to see whose portion looks the biggest. And then I'm like, oh, that's a pretty big lump of lasagna. I think I'll go with that.
Yeah. Well, that's look, do you know what? Another dish we put into the book, and it's my Italian chef was very upset with me. It's more a combination than just a dish. It's the lasagna, coleslaw, and chips.
Oh yeah.
Which I know the lasagna is Italian, but the combination of those three things is distinctly Irish. And he was like, that's an abomination.
Oh, it's so good.
And we used to have them when I was a student in, where's the pub in Cork? I can't remember, but I used to just love going in there and it was just lasagna, coleslaw and chips. And it's just comfort.
Yeah, 100%.
All of the way in which the elements work together.
Let's just have a look at your snack here before we.
I'm a bit of a demon for these yolks, you know.
The full fill bars, man, they're absolutely excellent,
and they're getting expensive. That's the problem.
They're like €3 now, aren't they?
They're $3.80 in some places.
I buy these in bulk, actually.
But the problem is, I buy them in bulk and you eat them all.
Yeah,
and it defeats the purpose of having a protein bar and saying, I'm not going to have the chocolate option, I'm going to have the protein. And then you get 10 of them, and then 2 days later they're gone.
Yeah, I need like 4. And let me tell you, it affects the digestive system if you've got 4 of these bad boys in a row.
It's too much protein, and then you can't. And then they trick you and they go 2 for €6 and you go, Jesus, 2. And then it's 4 for €5 and you go, fuck, I'll just get the 4 of them.
Yeah,
and then you eat them all in the car. And then you go, why did I buy those 4 bars? I didn't want them. But, you know that.
Yeah, protein bars are like, it's gotten to the point now where they're obviously not as nice as a regular chocolate bar, but they're at the point now where they're fine. And you're kind of like...
Yeah, they've developed, because they used to be quite sawdust-like and kind of breaking. A bit like, I mean, not, again, we make gluten-free bread as well, but sometimes when gluten-free bread is just more kind of like crumbly, just falls apart.
Yeah.
And and sometimes I just say to people, if you can't have bread, just go with a burger or something.
Absolutely,
don't kill yourself with really bad bread just to have that slice.
It's all gluten-free bread's awful.
Yeah.
It's better now.
Yeah,
but
and
I had it years ago.
We make one in the restaurant, and as long as you can put eggs and dairy in it, it works.
Yes.
But then if you have non-dairy gluten-free, you're done.
What worries me about gluten-free bread is whenever it's given to you, it's just as stale on the day it's made as it is on the day that it's completely dead.
It's just always the way.
A consistent level of stale.
And then you toast it, and it gets even harder.
Yeah.
So I know. That's like the Irish. My mum always toasts scones when you take a really dry thing, and then you make it drier, and then they go, this needs butter. It's really dry.
Yeah.
And then you go, but it was really soft when it came out of the oven. And it's like, oh no, I like it toasted. And you're like, okay.
Yeah, I kind of get it. You have a book.
I do.
We briefly mentioned it, but...
We have a new book out called An Irish Food Story. 100 Foods That Made Us. And as I said, like there's the serious, from the seaweed to the really humorous Ribena and Findus crispy pancakes and Angel Delight. Which was the height of sophistication.
Yeah.
The Viennetta.
Yeah.
Which just, I had that recently and I was so sad.
I'm so nostalgic for Viennetta and Romantica.
Oh, Romantica. That didn't make the cut because it was like either or. But
it's for rich people anyway.
Yeah. It reminds me of, do you remember the penguin you used to get in the Indian restants for dessert?
Yes.
Yeah. Something like that. And
you were sad about your Viennetta?
Yeah, because I had it and then I was like, it couldn't beat the 8-year-old me eating it, because because you used to have ice cream with wafers.
Yeah.
And then the step up was the Viennetta.
Absolutely.
And then the next one was the Romantica, but we were kind of the Viennetta people.
Did you do like Luster's fruit salad and custard?
No, but my mum used to make like trifle, but it was with tinned fruit and jelly and custard, bird's custard.
So our staple dessert was like Luster's fruit salad from a tin. You know the tin of
yeah,
and just custard on it, and maybe like a scoop of ice cream. That was the country dessert.
But look, it hits all the bases. So,
I loved it. It's good for you as well. It's fruit.
Fruit, creamy, sugar. Yeah, tin fruit was, that's all I ever saw. So like, growing up sometimes.
Yeah,
and my own daughter now does not eat fruit or vegetables.
Yeah,
and she's just, and the doctor said she'd be grand. It's only 3 years.
Sherlock.
Look, it'll be grand.
And then she'll be cooking some stuff from your book.
Well, I hope
so. You're going through all the like nostalgic Irish foods,
and also the potato and like stout and cider and Sidona and like crisp sandwiches. We didn't talk about. They are I mean, I'd nearly take a crisp sandwich more than a sugar sandwich. Nearly.
I totally agree with you. Especially if you jazz it up. A bit of cheese.
Yeah.
Make a toasty out of it.
That's another crisp sandwich. Just a shop that just sells crisp sandwiches.
You could absolutely do, especially if you had like melted cheese, if you had like a little bit of, if you could jazz it up for the more sophisticated person.
Did you ever get them when they did them on the airline? I think it was only the New York route.
No.
And I think Clodagh McKenna, and they sold it to you with 2 pieces of bread, a butter pat and a pack of potato, and you had to make it yourself.
That's mad.
And it was £5 back in the day. And then they discontinued it, and there was like uproar. And
I would have thought it was great. I'd have got mad if I knew it existed.
I would have thought it was great, like great markup on that. 2 bits of bread, crisps, butter pat, £5, and they discontinued. It came in a little nice box, and that was like welcome to Ireland.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can't get more Irish than that.
And I'd be selling that stuff, no problem at all.
So the book title again, there for anybody who wants to get it,
An Irish Food Story. 100 Foods That Made Us, available in all good bookshops and internet shops and all that crack. And also you can get it signed from the website. And I know it's cheaper on Amazon. Do not email me and say it's cheaper on Amazon.
And you won't get it signed. And you want to have this man's
But you
signature.
can bring it to the shop. You can bring it to me and say, I bought this on Amazon. Will you sign it for me? You know who you are. And it's grand. I will sign.
Haven't been on the internet for a while. I don't know if you want to open that door.
I will sign it for you. Just come along now. Just be nice now. Don't tell me you got it for £5 cheaper. I know it's cheaper. Amazon are bigger than me.
Thanks a million for coming. This has been excellent. I've tasted the sea.
No, absolute pleasure.
Bit of Italy.
And it's always, do you know what? It's always great to have fun about food because you know what? We've such a difficult relationship with food in Ireland, and we kind of go between these poles of having the really processed stuff and the really traditional stuff, and we can't seem to kind of bridge them. And I think we need things like this to bring the bolognese and the Pinot Noir and the seaweed and the biscuits and the Diet Cokes and say, look, it's just food. Let's have a bit of crack about it.
Absolutely. I love a bit of food and a bit of crack. And to you at home, I hope you love a bit of food and crack as well. Until I see you next time, stay delicious.
This show is part of the HeadStuff Podcast Network, a hub for the creative and the curious. Shows are produced in association with HeadStuff and the Podcast Studios Dublin. Find out more or become a member at headstuffpodcasts.com.